Uh-huh. Yeah, they just found out we have souls. Yeah, tell all your friends. Uh-huh. No, seriously, it's on the internet. Yeah, no, I would not lie to you. All right, I gotta go. I'm at church. Bye. Tell all your friends. Yeah? Yeah, I know that. It was designed for dramatic effect. It was designed for effect. I could have called my mom and she would have been weirded out completely at the fact that I would talk. But, you know, I'd call Stephanie, but she would never answer the phone. So, you think I'm getting bleeding out of both eyes and dying, and then get, you've reached Stephanie's voicemail. Yeah, good. So, all right. So we are in 2 Samuel, chapter 16. What happened last week? Who's they? David. David and his men fled. Now, why did David and his men flee? From who? With the hearts of the men of Israel. So he has a significant, or at least at this time, it appears that he has a significant force and that he has come to take the possession of his father's kingdom. And David sees the situation in which he's in. If David's trapped within the city walls because Absalom seized the city, can David rally his forces? Can David rally people to his aid? So David leaves, but does he leave the city empty? What does he leave behind? What? He leaves 10 concubines, and he leaves spies, who are 2 priests and a man in the administration. And the purpose of one of the individuals in the administration was to do what? Feeding bad intel, but also be a foil to who else? Ahithophel. If Ahithophel comes up with an idea, this guy's job was to play seagull and come over and go on all over the plan. All over the plan. That was his job. His job was to play seagull. Because that's what they do at the beach. Have you ever, or over at Applebee's? You ever been over to Applebee's recently? But underneath that tree, don't park under that tree. Your car will not be the color it was when you went in. Yeah. That's what David did. For the sole purpose of having intel and for the sole purpose of being able to get further away. Okay, so we pick up in chapter 16. When David passed a little beyond the summit, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, met him with a couple of donkeys saddled, bearing 200 loaves of bread and 100 bunches of raisins and 100 of summer fruit, skin of wine. And the king said to Ziba, "Why have you brought these things?" And Ziba answered and said, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on, and the bread and the summer fruit for the young men to eat, and the wine are for those too faint in the wilderness." And the king said, "Where is your master's son?" And Ziba said to the king, "Behold, he remains in Jerusalem, for he has said, today the house of Israel will give me back the kingdom of my father." Then the king says to Ziba, "Behold, all that belongs to Mephibosheth is now yours." And Ziba said, "I pay homage. Let me ever find favor in your sight." The king, what's happened now? The plot thickens. What just occurred? Explain. So Ziba's lying. Or Mephibosheth really believes he's going to be king. Now, what kept Mephibosheth from being king when David came in, and why did David not kill him? He's a cripple. Is he a threat to a king? No, he is not. So, he couldn't. So, is Ziba lying? We will find out that this is a big, fat lie. See, notice what happens here is in the midst of the chaos, an individual decided to go, now's my chance. Now's my chance. Because when Absalom comes in, will Absalom show Mephibosheth kindness? There's a good chance he probably will not. So now, if you're Ziba, and you want the lands that used to belong to the king, Saul, you have a great opportunity to present a false narrative to the outgoing king and present yourself as paying homage. I mean, there is a lot of deception going on in these passages. This is a brilliant move. I brought these horses, O king, for you and your family to ride upon. I brought 200 loaves of bread. I brought raisins and summer fruit. Apparently that's like, I don't know. I've heard of summer squash, but never summer fruit. But some type of fruit. And I brought wine to refresh you all. And all this is to curry favor. And then when the king asks, how did you come by this? Or where? And notice David is not like, man, thanks, dude, you saved the day. He is not reticent to accept this at first, right? Why are you here? Where, huh? Where did you come from? And it's not, huh, but kind of like, huh. Well, I would think when they saw the city, whoa, there we go. I think when they saw the city emptying, if you're in the city, which is where Mephibosheth and Ziba are, it's pretty evident that David is making a mad run. Because, again, if David's trapped in the city, he cannot rally forces. And David must go out and rally forces because Absalom, for how long did Absalom have the advantage of rallying his forces? 4 years. So he's out. And have you ever heard the term rats leaving a sinking ship? This guy's a rat fleeing a sinking ship. And I'm going to get what I can get as I go. Now, notice all the treachery that is involved in this text. All this comes. This is a bit of a corrupt thing that's going on. And so he tells us with Benaiah. Now we will eventually see as we continue on that all of this was a lie. But David, in the rashness, does not what? Behold, all that belongs to Mephibosheth is now yours. What did he do? I heard. He didn't check the story, and he stripped Mephibosheth of his wealth, and he gave it to a lying slave. We're going to see, and you're going to see here just for a little bit here, where the house of Saul kind of takes on maybe, well, we'll just look at it and then we'll talk about it. Then David came to Barim, and then there was a man of the family of the house of Saul whose name was Shimei, and the son of Gera. And as he came, he cursed continually, not saying curse words, but more as in, issuing curses upon David. He could have been cursing at the same time. We never know. It says here, and he threw stones at David and at the servants of the king, and the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And Shimei said as he cursed, get out, you man of blood, you worthless man. The Lord has avenged on you all the blood on the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. The Lord has given the kingdom into the hand of your son Absalom. See, the evil is on you, for you are a man of blood. You brought this on yourself. You are being avenged for the blood of Saul's house. Did David kill any of Saul's people? No, he killed everybody that killed Saul, or he killed everybody that killed any member of Saul's household, right? So you have this going on. If you're David and you're David's men and you're leaving, and you now get the report that Saul's grandson has decided to stay because he's going to get the kingdom, and you're David's men, and now here's a man from not just Benjamin, but from Saul's house, cursing you and saying you're being punished, this is kind of a bit of a psychological issue for you, is it not? Because what does it sound like is happening besides just revolt with Absalom? Huh? There's politics. You now have maybe an unsteady Benjamin that may decide to throw in and shift things. Now we know that this isn't going to happen if we continue to read upon. But if you're David's men, you now have the family of Saul, which appears to try to do an upstart at the same time. Have you ever, as we watch the news, now we have global access to news all the time. Have you ever watched when coup d'etats begin and you've got warring factions? And Olivia is an excellent case of this. There's no real strong man coming in, and then all these factions break into little warring parties, and then the nation just kind of dissolves. Some would go, well, that's kind of where we are. Probably not. Absalom has good control of the military, he has good command and control features, and he also has one of David's chief advisors. But if you're fleeing in disarray, this does not aid in your fleeing, does it not? Let's keep going. Then Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go and take off his head. I go kill him for you. Be real quick." This side of the family, have you noticed Joab's side of David's family? Is they are purebred redneck, aren't they? I kill him real quick. Ain't nobody finds him either. Put him in all I need is a track hoe and a piece of land. Take him out. You ever notice that? The way they do business is we just kill you. That's what David says. But the king says, "What have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because the Lord has said for him to curse David, who then shall say, why have you done so?" David said to Abishai and to all his servants, "Behold, my own son seeks my life. How much more now may this Benjamin? Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Lord has told you to do so." One of the things that's going on here is he's saying, look, if God has told this man to curse me, then let him curse me. And if I cut this guy's heads off, then I'm actually doing something that's against God's will. But notice what he says. What is the most important thing of why he is leaving? Yes, but why? My own son seeks my life. The matter at hand is not a cripple who thinks he's going to get the throne, and is not a crazy man throwing rocks and dirt at a bunch of armed soldiers, but the fact that David's own son Absalom has rallied an army to his side and has began to force the king from his stronghold. Let us maintain our thoughts upon the main thing, and the main thing is Absalom is coming with an army. Let this guy do what he's going to do. If this is the Lord's will, what he's saying is true. If it's not the Lord's will, it'll go by the wayside. But what is occurring is Absalom is coming, and we need to focus our attention there. It does at times. That's right. One of the best examples of Gamaliel's wisdom in the New Testament is he looks at the entire folks and he says, look, many people have come saying that they are the Messiah. And we didn't do anything to them, and their movement started and it fizzled. If this is of God, we will not stop it. But if this is not of God, it'll stop itself. And so David is kind of taking this, and you think about it. in David's situation, which is the greater threat? A crazy dude throwing rocks or Absalom coming with an army? Where do I need to focus my army's attention? A crippled guy in the palace? I've already stripped him of his lands? Or my son coming with an army? Right here it says. So David and his, it may be that the Lord will look on the wrong done to me, and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing. This is advice. This guy is from God, great. If this guy is not of God, may the Lord repay me for my cursing. David really takes a very practical approach to a lot of these things. If this is of God, God will take care of it. I'm going to truck on doing what? Yeah, you're going to say something. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who embrace the suck is very much an army thing. And it's just one of those things of this is just going to hurt. So I'm just going to embrace it even in the midst of the hurt because it does no good to me. Kind of like if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. Hey, you know what? They did drop 3. That's true. That's true. It is disappointing. I didn't wear my. I forgot to put on Favre today. I didn't help out my team. It's not that I'm superstitious, but that's how some of these things happen. It's only weird if it doesn't work. So let's keep going. So David and his men went on the road with Shimei went along the hillside opposite them, cursing as he went, throwing stones and flinging dust. How nice. As though things can't get bad enough. And the king and all the people were with him, and they arrived weary in Jordan, and there he refreshed himself. Now Absalom and all the people and the men of Israel came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. And when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, came to Absalom, Hushai said to Absalom, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" And Absalom said to Hushai, or Hushai, whoever you want to do it, Is this your loyalty to your friend? Why did you not go with your friend? And Hushai said to Absalom, "No, for whom the Lord and his people, and all the men of Israel have chosen, his I will be, and I am with him I will remain. And again, whom should I serve? Should it not be his son? As I have served with your father, so I will serve you." Absalom comes up with Ahithophel. Hushai comes in. Long live the king. And what does Absalom ask the man? First of all, the man calls him king to curry favor. And Absalom asks what? That. But one of the first things, where do your loyalties lie? Where do your loyalties lie? And notice he gives this nebulous kind of answer. He doesn't go, "Oh, with you, great king." He doesn't say that. He says it in such a way that it could be assumed that's what he's saying. And then he closes it out, "As I've served your father, so I'll serve you. Because in serving you, I'm serving because who sent me to be here? Your father." Notice what he says here. "Now whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel have chosen, this will be with him of whom I will remain." Well, I think what is going on is he's being cryptic in an answer to where Absalom will assume that he is on his side. But what he's actually saying is, I'm with the man who God has chosen to be king, and you ain't him. But I'll say it in such a way where you think I am to agreeing with you. That's one way to take this, and that's why some scholars take this. What he's doing is being cryptic in his answer. Some would say, no, he's trying to change sides. We know that he's been sent by David to do what? Spy, but not just spy. He's to be the seagull, which is to fly over the plan and go on everything Abishai comes up with an idea with. Oh, that plan's not going to work. You're going to need at least, how many men do you have? 20 times that number. Well, that plan's not going to work. Do you see how narrow that road is? You must be on dope. His whole job is to make the other guy's stuff look bad. The other guy does not need help. We will see in a minute. The other guy does not need any help with bad decision-making process.
Those, where he repeats himself, okay, when it says, O King, repeats himself, right? Doesn't that have an emphasis? An emphasis on him being the king?
There is a great deal of emphasis, and if you're trying to curry favor with someone who you've been sent to spy upon, you're going to do all you can to endear yourself to that individual. Oh, my Lord the King, oh wise men. Those of you, anybody who's seen The Desolation of Smaug, The Hobbit, that's your homework assignment. When the dragon wakes up and Bilbo Baggins is found out to be in there, Bilbo Baggins does not talk nicely to the dragon because he thinks the dragon's a great guy. He talks nicely to the dragon because it's a dragon. And the dragon says, "You are quite polite for a hobbit." Is that the phrase? Yeah. You are very polite for a thief and a hobbit. You have very nice manners. Well, he's just trying not to get cooked. That's what he's trying not to do. But he uses a great deal of superlatives, and he uses a great deal of lofty talking. It doesn't help Bilbo Baggins. It does help Hushai. Because without any further ado, Absalom goes, "All right then, you're my homeboy."
Wasn't he risking being murdered on the spot right there?
Well, yeah. Typically, when there is a coup, the inbound king kills everyone associated with the outgoing king.
Except himself. My father doesn't know.
Well, no, but they typically kill everybody involved to prevent disloyalty to the outgoing king. This is one of many mistakes Absalom makes. I mean, even Ahithophel would be in danger of being killed because he served David faithfully. And within the ancient Near Eastern world, this is one of the things that they would do. Why? Well, it prevents another coup. Because if the tide of battle begins to swing against Absalom, everybody can go, "Well, I was only on his staff to help you out, O king." Well, David knows who has been sent to do that, and it's 3 men. 2 of them are priests, and 1 of them is Hushai. Any other questions before we move on? Then Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give your counsel. What shall we do?" Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go to your father's concubines who he has left." How many did he leave? Okay. "To keep the house, and all of Israel will hear that you have made yourself a stench to your father. And the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened." Keep reading. "So they pitched the tent for Absalom on the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. Now in those days the counsel of Ahithophel gave was as if one counseled the word of God. So it was all the counsel of Ahithophel's esteemed, both David and Absalom." What shall we do? What's the plan? What plan does Ahithophel come up with?
Rape some people.
Huh? Let's rape some people! Yay! Now let me ask you this question. And someone in here has already pointed out the fact of this, so she's not allowed to say anything. Who is related to Ahithophel? Let me help you out a little further. Once upon a time, on a rooftop of the palace, a king stood and committed mental adultery watching a woman bathe. Ahithophel is Bathsheba's grandfather. The plot thickens. Now we can kind of see why possibly Ahithophel has switched allegiance very early on, because what has David done in all of this? All of this goes, look at it, all of this goes back to that one instant, does it not? David sees the woman, he has an affair with the woman with his vision, he then takes the woman, he sleeps with the woman, and if you use the case that since he's the king and she doesn't have any means of saying no, you can make the case that it is rape through power. And then he kills her husband and takes her for his wife. So Ahithophel's advice is, little payback is fair play, isn't it? Huh? Back on you 10 times. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to the scene of the crime. We're going to pitch a tent, and you're going to go and you are going to go into these women. And it sounds so polite the way it's done in the text. But the 10 women were not willing associates in this.
But they didn't pitch the tent on the patio. They pitched it on the roof.
On the roof, to where it could be done in the sight of all of Israel. Where they may not have seen it all, they certainly could have heard it all.
So they didn't have any say-so in it all.
Right. And so you have this. Now, this is designed to strengthen the hand of Absalom.
Showing that he conquered his bad family.
That is one way of looking at it. Let me ask you, though,
It's like kind of like burning the boats on the shore, so they can't go back.
but there's a concept there. But let me ask you this question. If you are following the things of God, and you have a person who decides that I've got this brilliant plan, we'll rape the 10 concubines that David leaves behind, are there consequences for that? Will this endear you to moral people? Does this actually strengthen your hand? Do we see that the request of David having for the counsel of Ahithophel to be madness beginning to start to come true? This is a great way of losing support. This is a great way, because Leviticus chapter 20 says that you are not to sleep with your father's wives under penalty of times 10.
Wasn't that also a way of Absalom showing his military strength and his control?
Sure. I would agree with that answer 100%. This is, we're going to institute where I am powerful. That's a good plan. I like it. Yeah. I'll show the people who's boss. I worked with a guy when I was in Italy. I worked with a lot of corrupt folks in Italy. It was an amazing place. But I got a guy in, and the scuttlebutt on him was he's very Korean. He was very Korean. And we sat in a meeting, and he comes in and he goes, I'm the boss. I'm in charge. It's my signature that authorizes everything. And I'm sitting there next to my master sergeant, and he goes, no, that's not true, sir. He goes, oh, yes, it is. He goes, actually, it's our signatures that authorize any of the funding and office space within the building. Sir, you don't have any control over that. I'm in charge. And then this woman at the end of the table piped up and asked a question, and he says, I don't know who you are. The biggest mistake you'll ever make in the military when you end up begin with, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you do here, but you need to shut up. Me and my masters are like, please stop, please stop. Your funeral is going to come. And then he begins to berate her. Do you want to know who she was? The 2-star general's wife, the senior mission commander for all of northern Italy. And he's like, oh, why didn't you tell me? Did you not see us doing this? Please stop, stop, stop. Very dumb mistake. I know what I'll do. I'll tell you who the boss is. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to rape 10 women. Brilliant plan, right? Don't you think? Brilliant plan? Don't you think? Brilliant plan? I think this is a mistake. Now also, let me ask you this question. Absalom is in this mess. Why?
He's mad over somebody raping somebody.
He's mad over somebody raping somebody. And that would be his very own sister. And was angry at his half-brother for doing it, then turns around and does the very thing he killed his half-brother for. Yeah.
Wasn't it prophesied also by Nathan in chapter 12?
Well, let's go back and look at chapter 12.
Verse 11.
Let's go look. Verse 11. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of this son. For you did what you did in secretly, but I will do this thing before you, all of Israel, before the sun. Very good catch, brother.
Set up the tent of daytime before the sun.
And here's the thing. What David does in secret, Absalom does in full view of all of Israel. Good catch.
So did God control all this? He left 10 concubines behind?
Well, certainly it seems like he is guiding the process of this plan. Now, does that absolve Absalom for raping the 10 women? No. No.
Give God some blame.
Huh?
Does it give God some blame?
That's always one of the questions, and you like to ask these difficult questions right towards the end. I'm learning that about you. There are some that would say yes. That because of what occurs, God is culpable because being omniscient, he would know all these things, and therefore he is setting the conditions by which these things would occur. And then there are others go, well, no, a holy God does not involve himself in sin and evil activities at all. And so you have tensions in the text where you have things like this. And I lean more towards the side that while God is setting the conditions and guiding these things, he is not necessarily going to be held responsible for the act of wicked human beings. He is going to punish them for their activities. So while, yes, he may set the conditions and standards, he's not culpable for their actions.
Because of free will.
Or a will that is free, that acts freely at times.
And I'm curious how Absalom had a choice here. This was prophesied prior to it happening.
He didn't have to. Somebody else could have done it.
Who else was in his house that was going to do it?
He could have had Ahithophel do it. Great plan, Ahithophel. Go execute. And again, this goes back to a matter of perspective, does it not? I'll give you a great example. If you were here for this one, this is a repeat. If you're not, it's not. I shoot Charles right now. Pull out one of the mini guns. Pow! Charles, sorry. I'm going to shoot the troublemaker. I shoot Kyle. Pop, 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 pop. Collateral damage. Let me ask you, is what I did an evil thing?
Yes.
Great. So, by hands, me shooting Kyle is an evil thing. By hands. Let's see it.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. Now, here I am. Hold on. Here I am. The police have come. I'm wearing bracelets. And in comes two men in trench coats. They identified themselves as Special Agent Smith and Special Agent Smith. And come to find out, Kyle is not Kyle. He's really a notorious terrorist known as Carlos the Jackal. And Carlos, inside his wife's bag, has produced a dirty bomb. And I am Special Agent Smith, who took on the form of Pastor Ashley Payne, knowing through intel that Carlos would be thinking an attack here. And before he could drop the dirty bomb, I killed Carlos the Jackal.
Then we like you better off.
Is what I did evil. Is what I did evil.
Just one vote.
You're a terrorist, Carlos. Is what I did evil now? Is it? Why?
Because you murdered him without due process.
No, I didn't murder him without due process. Because law enforcement can use lethal force to prevent a crime or an attack of physical harm against another individual, even though they have not actually committed the harm of the crime. A man can pull a gun and be shot without firing a single round, correct? That's not evil. That is actually how the law is written, is it not?
You can actually say it.
So, let me ask you this question. Have I committed an evil act?
Yes, you have.
No, I haven't.
God's eyes.
No, because one would be murder and the other one is killing. See, thou shalt not kill is poorly translated. That verse is thou shalt not murder.
Okay, so if you kill someone to protect someone else, that's not murder.
We're not talking about other situations. We're talking about this situation.
Just that.
In defense of life, if I shoot someone in defense of life, is it murder or defense of life? It's defense of life. It's killing, not murder. Murder would be the intentional taking of another person's life who is innocent, not the intentional taking of another person's life who plans to do other folks harm.
It puts you in the sniper territory.
Yes. So now, let me ask you, what changed in that scenario? Huh? The information that you have. What changed is the information you had. The action is still the same. I shot Kyle. Or Carlos, however you want to go. Raymond Lindholm's not here. I usually use Raymond Lindholm because he's bald. I shot Kyle. That's what happened. What changes is your availability to the information as to what's bad. Now, in this case here, it's kind of hard to justify rape of any kind. And nor would I even try. What you have, I see, is Ahithophel taking an opportunity to publicly degrade David because David had degraded his granddaughter in his eyes and degraded him as well. And he saw an opportunity to utilize David's son to make that occur. And all of this was to bring about the judgment which Nathan, through God, or by God, had pronounced upon David. And all of this will come about as it does. And does Absalom escape judgment for this? He does not. Absalom will pay the penalty for this crime and the crime of revolting against the king, because the same penalty is, and does he die? Oh, I don't want to ruin it. You won't come back. Questions? Other than ones I can't answer, because I'll shoot you again, Carlos. Questions? We're going to see here in a little bit where, let's see this guy's name, I keep forgetting. Hushai begins to play the role of seagull. And he's also going to play the role of informant. And we're going to see where David's moving out of the city was in David's best interest. Absalom thinks he's what? He's won, right? He has taken the city in a bloodless coup. He has now 2 of David's advisors that have sided with him. The priests have left the ark in the city, and he's going to assume that that is God's being with him. All this is going in his way, right?
And he's made the ultimate affront to his father.
He has been a stink in his father's eye. And we've also seen where other people in the midst of this great turmoil are going to get theirs because it's time to get theirs. As this begins to unfold, you will see where people get theirs. And theirs is not what they thought it would be. Any other questions?
We thought we were only the ugly ones in politics.
Yeah, look, if you think this is bad, go read once you get over into the divided kingdom. I mean, we might be a dumpster fire next to a tire pit. They're a tire pit next to a trash fire next to a volcano. Any other questions before we close out?
I have a question about this morning.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that God administered death to the Egyptians because they didn't follow the Passover. But they didn't have a chance to follow the Passover.
No, I think what I was saying was the lack of the blood on the doorpost and the lintel is what caused them to be killed, right? But they didn't follow the Passover, absolutely. But there is...
They followed the Passover because they didn't know.
That's right. But you also have a group, as the text mentions, that is a mixed company that comes out with the Israelites, and some would argue that that was some Egyptians that had began to follow after the things of God and began to follow after the things of Israel, and they themselves practiced that event that evening. It's an argument based more on silence, but that's where that mixed company evidence comes from. But even still, the command that God gave was, any house that does not have the blood on the doorpost and lintel, that house I will.
So did they do? I didn't understand that they heard that.
Pharaoh did it.
Pharaoh heard that?
Pharaoh does. If you go back to, let's take a look here. I believe he does back.
I think he's just speaking to the children of Israel. Exodus 12.
Let's see here. One more plague would I bring upon Pharaoh in Egypt. Afterward I will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will drive you away completely. Speak now. This is 11, chapter 1. Speak now in the hearing of the people, that they may ask every man of his neighbor for his golden jewelry. And the Lord gave the people the favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and the sight of the people. And Moses said, thus says the Lord, at midnight I will go in the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn of the land of Egypt will die. From the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the mill to the firstborn of cattle, there shall be a great cry in the earth, and there shall be like never before again. No dog will howl against the people of Israel, neither man or beast, that they may know that the Lord makes a distinction between Israel, Egypt, and Israel. And all these your servants shall come down to me and bow down and say, get out all the people afterwards. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, that I may multiply my wonders in the land of Egypt. He doesn't talk about the blood here in this passage, but this part of 11 is supposed, the way it breaks down, the reason why Pharaoh says, get out and never come back to me unless next time you see my face you will die, is they believe that this section of 11 is actually something that is said in the discussion with Pharaoh, or something similar to it, and then Pharaoh says, get out of my presence. Because Pharaoh calls him back, does he not? At the end of everybody. And so the darkness isn't sufficient enough for a lot of scholars to have Pharaoh warrant the death sentence Oh, it was dark for 3 days. Don't come back and die. So they believe that this conversation in 11 is something Moses had with Pharaoh, and then he was relaying that conversation with the people. Yeah, brother?
The sentence just before verse 9
Yeah.
says that he went out to Pharaoh in a great anger.
Yep. And it ties back. And so it's not necessarily that they would know all of that within the land. And so you can kind of look at it. But the way in which I've looked at this from the passage, you see the passage that says, the door that has the blood, I will pass over, but the door that does not, I will kill. And so you can make the assessment that yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, does it even matter if all the Egyptians heard or did not hear?
Well, ignorance of the law.
What thing? Because does it not just come down to the fact that God chose Israel and He did not choose Egypt, and in a sense He destined many of these people to this fate, and that's just the way it is.
Well, and you also have both in chapter 4 and in chapter 11 the decree going to Pharaoh that I will kill your firstborn child.
Well, and God doesn't have to justify His action.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I was a little confused.
Well, it is a bit of an argument of silence on whether or not they all knew or whether or not the information was given to Pharaoh himself.
And those who don't know, don't know God's law and God's plan for us, still, if they die without Jesus, they're dead without Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a hand over here. No? Okay. Yes.
Since it was brought up about the firstborn, maybe I'm having King James, maybe it's not given, but it says the firstborn. It doesn't say the firstborn child, so couldn't a grandfather have died also, or a mother who was the firstborn in the family?
Yes. It is a firstborn child of any age. An animal. Typically, firstborn child is not, it's a title of position. He is the firstborn child. It's a status of rank in a household. Because, and we saw this with Amnon, he was the...
What was then, like say you have a daughter first and then a son.
It's firstborn male. Firstborn male. And you'll see this as we go into other passages where they are to redeem all firstborn males that break open or tear open their mother's womb. And it's always male. Yes?
Total argument of silence, but I would imagine that during all this time, all the plagues, all the signs of God, you would think that some of the Egyptians may have started to possibly follow God or follow the Israelites. By the same token, couldn't you have had some Israelites who may have started to worship the Egyptian idols? Would that maybe explain the mixed company?
Well, again, it's an argument from science. I would say that they would not, I don't think they would classify them in a mixed company. Because it kind of gives, especially as you're looking through this whole passage, it begins, and Acts kind of alludes to this in Stephen's speech, that the Israelites were culpable because they actively helped throw their children into the water. Now Moses does not make that, or the Exodus does not make that implication, but Stephen does. And so it is possible that you've had Israelites follow after the things of Egyptians during the time of the captivity. Just like within a church, you have folks that follow after the things that are not necessarily of God, but yet are still part of the covenant of faith, or at least they believe that they are. And so you certainly can have that. But Egypt did not possess just one type of people group as slaves. And so it is quite possible that these folks have become what we would later on describe as God-fearers, or came along with them because they were just in with the enlarged with the group. And we'll see later on, it's quite possible that many of these will help turn the hearts away of Israel away from them. And you see this as they get out in the wilderness, and you've kind of got those folks that are like that. We had a better life in Egypt. We had a much better life there. There's plenty of, did Egypt not have enough grace for you to fill that you brought us out into the wilderness? On and on and on and on, and with the litany that goes.
A better variety of food.
Right, right. So,
They always complained about that meat manna.
quail and manna. Tired of quail and manna. Tired of quail and manna. Yes. Huh? So, so it doesn't overtly say that they were aware that that blood supposed to be there, but I think in looking at that, especially in regard to that of Pharaoh, that's going to get back to Pharaoh, because that's one of the things that Pharaoh does. He has sent spies to check into the land of Goshen, and lo and behold, they had light. Or was it light, or was it locusts? I can't remember which one it was. But in one of the plagues, he sends spies actively to see what is going on amongst the Jews, and they come back and confirm, and he goes, oh, okay. So, but regardless of the blood or not, he is still warned repeatedly by God. I will take the firstborn child and kill him. Which also raises an interesting question. Pharaoh's alive. Which is, that's why a lot of the minor view that it's Amenhotep, Akhenaten comes after them. It's Amenhotep the third and Tutmosis the third. Akhenaten comes right after this. If you hold to the minority view, Akhenaten comes 2 pharaohs down, and Akhenaten claims that Pharaoh was an illegitimate Pharaoh because he was not the firstborn child. And Akhenaten is the only monotheistic Pharaoh in all of Egypt's history. So that's one of the evidences for the minority view that to utilize is how does this guy become a monotheistic Pharaoh out of a polytheistic Pharaoh, and the only one.
Well, I think a lot of that he learned from his father.
It's possible, but if that's the case, then his father, since his father is the next one after the Pharaoh of the Exodus, that's the reasoning is they saw what God did to Egypt, and it was a monotheistic God that did it, and so it shapes the mindset of the grandson, who then, when he becomes king, he goes into a monotheistic role. And so, again, that's an argument from silence from history and from text, but it's curious that in all of Egypt's history of pharaohs, there's only one, and he happens to fall right after one of the possible views for the Exodus. Any other questions?
Why did they have to eat unleavened bread?
Huh?
Why was it necessary for them to eat unleavened bread or like suffer the consequences? What was the...
Because they were to eat in haste. They were to not leaven the bread because they were going to be leaving in haste. As a matter of fact, the text, as we looked this morning, in the middle of the night, in the middle of this, as people died, they told them to get up and go. They wrapped their kneading bowls in their cloths, and they put it on their head, and for 7 days they are to eat unleavened bread, and no leaven is to be in the house. Many of the times leaven is used as synonymously for
Still in an Orthodox home around Passover, the little kids take a dustpan and a brush and they clean it out.
Yep.
Ceremonial to clean out the leaven from the house.
That's right. They put it over their fence. That's right. Yeah. See, leaven in itself is an inert object. I mean, it's just a powder. It has no power in and of itself. But you put leaven into things. Am I right, ladies? You put it into things. If you put it into grape juice, you will get wine. If you put it in a vat full of soaking wheat, you will get. If you let it sit for long enough, you will get whiskey. If you put it into bread or into dough that you're making, you will get. If you put a whole lot in, you will get. You can get a lot of bread, right? Huh? Leaven is yeast, and yeast is leaven. And so they're to take it all out from the house. And they are not to have it within the walls of the house. And the penalty that comes with that, if you have it and you eat it, is you are cut off. Any other questions? Any at all? Let's close out with a word of prayer then. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity to come together and look at your word. Heavenly Father, we ask that you will be with each and every one of us as we go out throughout the week. First, 2 Samuel shows the examples and the cost of treachery, of the consequences of sin. How all of these activities that have occurred tonight go all the way back to that one instance when David chose not to go out to battle as the kings did every year. And the weight of this sin cost David more than he ever imagined. We ask, Heavenly Father, for your blessing upon us as we leave here. We thank you for the wonderful gift of the rain and ask for your continued blessing upon this church and upon our nation as we select our future leader. And we ask for your blessing in all these things. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, folks.